So I didn't really introduce this vlog, so welcome. I had a series last year where I called it Fresh Reads, and that meant that I was reading books from published in that year itself, 2025 or 2024, 2023. The reason I called them Fresh Reads is that for me, I tend to let new books kind of languish on my TBR and read more from backlist. And so I wanted to make more of an effort last year to read more new releases and books that had been more recently published. And so this year I'm doing that as well, not really in a, organized project the way I did last year, but I'm trying to include them more often on my TBRs. So I ended up picking up Days of Light by Megan Hunter. And she is a UK-based author. She lives in Cambridge. And I heard about this on Eric Anderson's channel. He was doing his preview for the Women's Prize long list with Anna James, and they both mentioned this. So full disclosure, one of the reasons I was drawn to reading this was because it was apparently connected to the Bloomsbury Group. And now, over halfway in the book, it is not connected to the Bloomsbury Group in any way. It isn't about them. It doesn't have any characters that are members of the Bloomsbury Group or anything like this. The connection to the Bloomsbury Group is very loosely based on the relationship makeup in the story. So you have one sister who's a painter, one sister who's a writer. The sister who's a painter has a husband, but she also has her live-in lover who's also an artist. And that live-in lover is he's bisexual, so he's attracted to women and men. So this is, Vanessa Bell, Duncan Grant, Virginia Woolf, etc. So, just to make it very clear that if you're interested in reading something fictional, including Bloomsbury, this isn't that. This is just a relationship scenario that is similar to that one. And also kind of a time period that is similar, although, of course, it's World War II, and it starts in 1938. But we're going through World War II in part of this story, and that is, of course, if you know about the Bloomsbury Group and Virginia Woolf in particular, she committed suicide just at the beginning of World War II. So again, it's very loosely connected. Okay, so the book is structured really interestingly, and this is another reason why I wanted to read it. It takes place over 6 days, and these 6 days are pivotal in Ivy, our main character's life. So Ivy is the daughter of Marina and Angus. Marina is a painter, and the mother, and Angus is a painter and her stepdad, essentially. Ivy and her brother Joseph were brought up by Angus and their mother and their maid Anne, and their father's name is Gilbert, and he lives in the city, but he does come to visit them, etc. So it's one of those kind of bohemian artistic families with a different arrangement, let's say. So for Ivy, she very much becomes she's a very passive character, and I think this is a very typical style of female protagonist in I don't know if it's a certain generation of female writers or a certain stylistic choice of creating these rather passive women who are living their lives without much self-awareness. So Ivy she doesn't think she's good at anything. She's not good at painting. She's not good at dancing. She's not good at writing. She doesn't know what to be. She doesn't know how to live. And so due to the circumstances around her, which I won't share because I think that will potentially spoil this book doesn't have a ton of plot in it. So if I, reveal all the details of why Ivy makes decisions, the first one being a tragic loss, the second one being a self-discovery. If I reveal those, you're gonna kind of miss the point of reading the book. And that's the other thing. This is a style of book. I would actually compare it to The Safe Keep by Yael Wouden, which I read last year. In terms of it's got some poetic phrases, and the main characters, I would say that Ivy is not a ton like the main character in The Safe Keep. I think the main character in The Safe Keep is much more of a difficult person, a more particular woman. But in terms of the way they move through their lives, very much reactionary, but also Ivy has this level of waiting for the world to show her things. There's also a bit of a kind of mystical element in the beginning of the book that doesn't seem to be coming back around. I don't know if it will come back around in one of the next days. I'm currently, like I said, I'm halfway and I'm on day 4 now. And between each of the days, there's so the first 2 days, there's only a month in between them. And then the next 2 days, there's about 5 to, I think the next time jump is about 10 years. So there's time jumps in between, and you kind of know where the story's going from some of them to the next, and then others you're like, I don't know what could possibly have happened between these time jumps. And it always takes place right around Easter time, in like I said, starting in 1938, and I believe it ends in 1999. So I'm not really sure where this book is going, what it's going to try to say, if there's going to be any sort of message. I feel like it's one of those books about beauty in the ordinary, beauty in the everyday. But I believe that this book should be a book that I love. And this has happened to me. This happened to me with The Safe Keep as well, where there's just something missing. And I don't have an emotional connection to the characters. I guess that sometimes happens with books where you just want to love it and it just doesn't hit for you the way it does for other people. But yeah, I'm going to keep reading, and I'll check in again with you probably when I've finished it, and I'll see you then. Hi everyone. So I have finished Days of Light by Megan Hunter, and I have to say that the book kind of won me over a little bit in the second to last day, and that is because Megan Hunter kind of brought out a level of emotion that I felt the story really needed and warranted. And I think if the rest of the book would have had that level of emotionality, that level of depth, I think I would have liked it a lot more. So it's kind of hard to talk about what's happening in this book without spoiling it, because so little really does happen that I don't really know how much to reveal here. So I'm going to say that one of the things that bothered me about the story, and I think I've already mentioned that earlier in the vlog, was Ivy's lack of intention over her own life. And that continues in the second part of the book. And I found it very disconnecting and disenchanting for me for most of the story. Then she does take, the world into her own hands and kind of make some important decisions later on in the book. So I liked that part better. And I think that there was, in the second to last day, I really liked the kind of depth of emotion that Megan Hunter was able to bring out of the story, despite the fact that I found a lot of the other story lacking in that feeling. So I'm glad that I had that experience reading to the end of the story. She does talk about the fact that she referenced the Bloomsbury group when writing this story, so she very much had Vanessa Bell and Duncan Grant in mind when she was putting this together in terms of the structure of the family. She even used the descriptions of a certain painting of Vanessa Bell's, and she used real text quotes and things in different parts. So she talks about that in the notes section. Yeah. I was really, I was really hoping this would be a 5-star. I realized the other day that I have not had a 5-star read yet in 2026, and that is making me sad. I've not had a 5-star fiction read in 2026. So I think, overall, this just didn't have a consistency that I would have hoped for as a novel. And I think, the last chapter was trying to tie it all together and trying to give Ivy a depth that I felt she lacked through almost the whole novel. And there was also this reference to mystery and how she went into the mystery. And I can't really agree with that as like the big theme here, that she just lived her life in mystery. I mean, this is very much a book that's trying to talk about, the mundanity of life, the kind of embracing the life that you have, and maybe embracing the mystery is somehow something she was trying to tie in here. But I just don't see how that came across very well with Ivy. I just found her to be very passive in her life, and there was never like a kind of set level of intentionality with her as a character where I felt like she was actually, making a decision to embrace mystery. I don't know how, I feel like that could have been conveyed better earlier in the novel. So those are my final thoughts. I would say I could see other people that this would be, maybe an inspiring and lovely read for some people. There is, it does flow quite well into a nice, warm, wrapped up ending. But I do think that there could have been a more just more depth given. I think the structure could have been more. Could have been better. Could have had more to it that would have kept me in it and kept me engaged in the story. So yeah, I'll be curious to hear if any of you have read this, what your thoughts are. And that is the end of this reading vlog. I will hopefully do another one very soon. And I'll also be back again soon with another video. And thank you so much for watching.